If you've spent 4 years funding every single expense for your wife, her parents, and the young male assistant she secretly favored, only to find out they plan to take my high-rise penthouse, stocks, and all my personal assets by having a child together, this raw, unedited story is for you. My name is Hayden Brooks. I run a private wealth management firm I built from scratch over a decade. For years of marriage, I paid every bill, covered her mother's medical debt, bought her luxury cars, handed her assistant constant raises and bonuses at her request, never once demanded equal split of household costs, all while silently saving bank records, chat logs, audio recordings, and asset ownership paperwork. They manipulated me with emotional blackmail nonstop, painted me as cold and ungenerous every time I hesitated to hand over more money, all while plotting to conceive a child to file for divorce and seize my properties. The breaking point came when she announced a pregnancy and demanded I sign over half my real estate portfolio to their unborn baby immediately. I never yelled, never resorted to violence, never secretly sabotaged them. I simply brought all legally binding documents and verified proof to our pre-scheduled family lawyer meeting. I only reclaimed assets fully registered under my sole name and cut all financial support. Every bankruptcy, social ostracism, and broken family fight they endured afterward came only from their own greed and long-running fraud. There was no revenge scheme I engineered, just consequences of their own choices catching up. Chapter 1: 4 years of one-sided financial exploitation. I founded my wealth advisory company at 27 after 6 years of backbreaking overtime at investment firms. By the time I married Clara at 32, I owned a top-floor downtown penthouse, 2 rental townhomes, a balanced stock portfolio, and steady 7-figure annual income. Clara worked a part-time boutique marketing role with minimal salary, and from our wedding day forward, every household expense fell solely to me. Her mother, Linda, suffered chronic joint illness and accumulated $140,000 in medical bills within our first year of marriage. Clara begged me to pay all hospital fees without delay, repeating the same line every time I hesitated slightly. "You make so much. It's just a small drop for you. But my parents will lose their home otherwise." I cleared the full medical balance in one lump transfer. That was the start of endless uncompensated spending on her entire blood family. 6 months into our marriage, Clara hired 24-year-old assistant Jackson as her personal admin. Within weeks, she began pushing me to raise his salary repeatedly, request company bonuses for him, even buy him a used sedan for work commute purposes. Every time I questioned why my firm's funds should cover her assistant's personal vehicle, she accused me of being petty and lacking empathy. "Jackson works overtime for me every weekend. You can't begrudge him basic transportation." For 4 straight years I complied, silently logging every outgoing transfer in a locked, encrypted cloud folder. Monthly luxury clothing shopping allowances for Clara, yearly cosmetic surgery installments, full insurance coverage for Linda, multiple cash bonuses wired straight to Jackson's personal bank account, rent and utility payments for a separate downtown studio apartment Clara claimed was a work office. I later found out it was their secret shared living space. I never confronted them early on, clinging to a faint hope that consistent equal giving would earn reciprocal care and honesty in return. Our marriage operated under extreme double standards. If I chose to reinvest business profits instead of splurging on designer jewelry for her, she'd stay silent for days and guilt-trip me over dinner. If Jackson sent her a small flower bouquet, she'd gush about how thoughtful and generous he was, contrasting his minor gesture against my multi-thousand-dollar gifts. Her parents joined in the manipulation every holiday gathering, saying I owed Clara a lifetime of comfort for taking her youth. I recorded every family dinner conversation and saved every late-night text where Clara pressured me for larger payouts, never intending to use the evidence unless an irreversible line was crossed. Outside this toxic cycle, I had 2 steady, unselfish people backing me up. My college best friend and business partner, Seth, who split all firm profits fairly and never asked me for handouts. My longtime family attorney, MS. Hale, who drafted all my premarital asset paperwork years before I met Clara, always reminding me to secure written proof of every monetary exchange. One winter dinner stands clear in my memory. I just finished a 12-hour work week closing a major client deal and mentioned I planned to allocate extra capital to firm expansion rather than buy the limited edition watch Clara had been requesting for months. Her face turned cold instantly, and Jackson, invited to our family meal as her work colleague, reached across the table to pat her hand comfortingly. "Don't worry, if Hayden won't treat you right, I'll save up to get you nice things myself." Clara smiled softly at him, ignoring me entirely for the rest of the meal. I hit record on my hidden phone placed beside my water glass, capturing every word without them noticing. That night, I added a new labeled folder to my digital archive, fully aware their hidden bond was far deeper than standard employer-system relations, yet I still chose to keep tolerating the endless financial drain, foolishly holding on to hope our marriage could be balanced one day. Chapter 2, the pregnancy announcement, and their first demand for my penthouse. 4 years and 2 months after our wedding, Clara came home late one evening, Jackson trailing a step behind her into the penthouse foyer. She said a positive pregnancy test on the marble entry counter without a single soft word to break the news gently. "I'm pregnant," she stated flat, staring directly at me without any trace of remorse or hesitation. I froze for a beat, processing the weight of what this implied, before asking a calm, straightforward question. "Whose child is it?" Jackson stepped forward immediately, placing a hand on Clara's shoulder in a possessive gesture, his tone confident and unashamed. "It's mine. We've been together for 2 years behind your back, and now we're having a baby." Clara picked up the pregnancy test again, folding her arms across her chest and launching straight into a set of rigid demands before I could respond. "We're filing for divorce within the week. To avoid messy public court battles, you need to transfer full 50% ownership of this penthouse, both rental townhomes and 20% of your stock portfolio into the child's legal trust fund before the end of this month. If you refuse, we'll drag every detail of your cold, cheap husband behavior into family court, paint you as an unfit father figure, and demand massive monthly spousal and child support payments for the next 18 years. I studied her face, noting zero flicker of guilt over 4 years of me covering every single one of her expenses, while she carried on a secret romantic relationship with her assistant and conceived his baby. All the prior small red flags lined up clearly in my mind. The separate studio apartment I'd funded for her work use, the endless bonuses I'd handed Jackson at her insistence, every dinner moment where they exchanged private glances right in front of me. "You want half my real estate and stock for a child that isn't biologically mine?" I kept my voice level, no raised volume or angry outburst. Linda arrived at the penthouse minutes later, having received an urgent text from Clara, and joined their coordinated moral pressure campaign instantly. "Hayden, you can't be so heartless to a newborn baby. This child deserves a stable luxury home to grow up in, and you have all this wealth you don't even fully appreciate." Jackson added his own bargaining line. "Arrogant and entitled. If you settle the asset, transfer quietly, we won't release private screenshots of your firm's internal budget chats to social media and ruin your professional reputation across the city's finance industry." I nodded once slowly, pretending to consider their ultimatum, then pulled out my phone to schedule a formal in-person meeting with my attorney for 3 days later. "I'll discuss all asset division terms with legal counsel present. Come to Ms. Hale's downtown office at 10 a.m. this Thursday with any paperwork you intend to submit." Clara's posture relaxed, convinced she'd successfully manipulated me into complying with their high-stakes asset grab plan. She and Jackson exited the penthouse together without another word to me, Linda trailing behind them to their temporary rented apartment. Once the front door clicked shut, I unlocked my encrypted cloud drive and compiled a complete organized packet of every piece of evidence I'd accumulated over 4 years. All medical bill payment receipts for Linda, salary and bonus wire transfers to Jackson, text logs where Clara begged me for constant cash infusions, hidden apartment rent records, dinner audio recordings, plus the fully signed premarital asset agreement drafted by MS. Hale. The prenuptial contract explicitly stated all real estate, stocks and business holdings acquired prior to marriage remained my sole separate property, with zero joint ownership rights for Clara regardless of length of wedlock. I sent the full digital packet to my attorney's secure mailbox that night, requesting a printed hard copy binder ready for our Thursday meeting. Chapter 3, the lawyer's office confrontation and full evidence display. Thursday morning, 10 a.m. sharp, Clara, Jackson, and Linda walked into MS. Hale's glass conference room together, dressed in polished formal outfits prepared to deliver rehearsed emotional statements to sway legal judgment. They carried a thin single-page draft asset transfer agreement they'd self-written, sliding it across the table toward me the second they sat down. "Sign this document immediately," Clara ordered, tone sharp and commanding. "All property and stock split terms we discussed are written out clearly here, and we can avoid dragging this through public divorce court." Ms. Hale sat silent beside me, hands folded atop the conference table, waiting for me to respond. I pushed the self-drafted agreement back toward them without touching a pen, then gestured to the large stack of labeled legal binders lined up along the table edge behind me. "Before I sign anything, let's go through 4 years of documented records together." I tapped the first thick binder marked premarital asset and separate property contracts, and Ms. Hale slid the full original signed prenuptial paperwork across to their side of the table. Every page bore both my signature and Clara's witness signature from before our wedding, bold printed clauses confirming all downtown real estate and personal investment accounts belonged exclusively to me, with no marital joint claim eligibility. Clara's smile faded instantly, but she attempted to argue the contract held loopholes tied to the unborn child. A minor child's right to housing overrides old premarital paperwork in family court. I shook my head and opened the second binder labeled 4 years full financial disbursement logs, projecting digital copies of thousands of bank transfer receipts onto the wall screen mounted in the conference room. Line after line displayed one lump payment after another. $140,000 medical debt cleared for Linda, recurring monthly shopping deposits to Clara's personal card, 12 separate bonus wire transfers totaling $68,000 sent to Jackson's private checking account, 12-month rent payments for their secret studio apartment all charged to my corporate expense account. Every transfer time-stamped, cross-referenced with matching text messages where Clara begged me for each sum, visible for all three of them to read clearly. Linda's face drained pale white. She'd never fully realized I'd logged every single dollar I'd voluntarily spent supporting their household over 4 years of marriage. Jackson shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair, avoiding eye contact with the projected screen full of his bonus records. Clara scrambled to defend the transactions as normal family and work expenditures. Normal work expenses don't include a private downtown apartment for you and your secret romantic partner to live in. I replied flat, opening the third evidence binder filled with building lease contracts signed under Clara's name, monthly rent auto deductions from my bank, and security camera footage captured by the apartment building lobby showing them entering and exiting together every night after finishing her boutique shifts. Their coordinated, confident front crumbled entirely, yet Clara still tried to pivot the narrative to frame me as the villain. You've always been emotionally distant and cheap. That's why I turned to Jackson for care and companionship. I clicked play on the hidden dinner audio recording I'd captured months prior, the clear audio filling the conference room. Jackson's voice promising to buy her luxury goods while I prioritized firm expansion, Clara's soft, grateful laugh in response. Zero mention of any supposed emotional neglect from me. Additional voice memos played next, recorded late-night calls where she guilt-tripped me for refusing instant large cash payouts for her personal wants. Every time I held back excess spending to reinvest into my company, you labeled me cold, yet you accepted every dollar I sent without a word of thanks while hiding a 2-year affair and conceiving a child with your assistant. I stated calmly, gesturing to the pregnancy test photo I'd scanned and printed as supplementary evidence. You came here today demanding half my multi-million-dollar assets as leverage to threaten public reputational damage, yet every piece of legal proof confirms you hold zero legal claim to any of my separate property under our premarital agreement. Jackson finally spoke up, his arrogant tone replaced by nervous panic. We can reach a smaller settlement. Just give us a smaller townhouse instead of the penthouse. We won't drag this to court. Ms. Hale cut in before I replied, reciting official state family law statutes clearly for all three to hear. Any asset transfer demanded under threats of reputational harassment is legally unenforceable. Additionally, all monetary support, Mr. Brooks provided over 4 years constituted voluntary spousal gifts with no legal obligation to continue funding Miss Carter, her mother or third-party associate Mr. Jackson Reed. And judge will order Mr. Brooks to surrender separate premarital real estate or stock to a child proven biologically unrelated to him via DNA testing. Clara's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table, tears springing to her eyes in a last-ditch performative emotional plea. What will we do without a home for the baby? I leaned forward slightly, no malice coloring my tone. That is a consequence of choices the two of you made together. I will not sign over any of my sole assets, and all future financial support of any kind for you. Your mother and Jackson is permanently terminated effective immediately. My legal team will file uncontested divorce paperwork this afternoon citing irreconcilable differences and proven marital infidelity with third-party conception. They spent the next 2 full hours cycling through every manipulation tactic they could muster. False, tearful apologies, promises to erase all social media threats, offers to drop the asset demand if I gave them a small cash payout. I remained steady, repeating my final decision without wavering, as Miss Hale sat beside me, verifying every legal point from the stacked evidence binders. Eventually, they left the conference room defeated, the self-drafted asset transfer agreement abandoned on the table surface as they rushed out the glass office doors. Chapter for their self-inflicted complete collapse. Within 10 business days of our attorney's office meeting, every layer of their carefully constructed, comfortable life crumbled entirely without any retaliatory action taken by me. I only stopped all cash flow and filed standard uncontested divorce paperwork per legal protocol. All their ruin stemmed from their own greed and 2-year secret affair. First, Jackson lost his full-time assistant position at Clara's boutique. The boutique owner reviewed the full stack of bank bonus records and lobby surveillance footage I'd sent over via neutral legal disclosure, discovering Jackson had accepted excessive unauthorized cash payouts from me via Clara's constant requests while conducting an on-the-clock romantic relationship with his supervisor. The business terminated his employment effective immediately and filed a formal civil claim to recover all unwarranted bonus funds he'd received over 4 years. With no steady income left, he could no longer cover the secret studio apartment rent we'd been paying for them, and the landlord issued a 3-day eviction notice. Clara's boutique professional reputation imploded across the city's retail industry. Word of the affair, pregnancy, and attempted asset extortion schemes spread between local business owners after the divorce filing became public court record. Every luxury brand supplying the boutique pulled their wholesale distribution contracts overnight, citing reputational risk from the scandal. Her weekly customer foot traffic dropped to near zero within a week. The boutique owner was forced to terminate her part-time contract to cut operating losses. Without her salary and my monthly shopping allowances, Clara could no longer afford designer clothing, cosmetic treatments, or prenatal private doctor visits for the pregnancy. Linda's financial situation deteriorated rapidly as well. I'd cleared all her past medical debt, but she'd taken out 3 new high-interest credit cards over the 4 years, relying on my future payouts to cover balances. Once I cut all financial support, the credit companies sent overdue collection notices daily. She attempted to beg every extended family member for emergency loans, yet all relatives reviewed the public court divorce documents and declined to assist, fully aware of the 4 years of one-sided exploitation they pressured me into enduring alongside Clara. No one was willing to sink cash into a household that had plotted to steal my multi-million-dollar assets through a conceived child and legal threats. Jackson exhausted every attempt to secure new employment at local marketing and retail firms, yet every background check uncovered the boutique's termination record tied to the scandal, and no business owner would hire him. He cycled through temporary minimum wage restaurant shifts that barely covered grocery costs, unable to afford the evicted studio's rent or prenatal medical copays for Clara. The pair were forced to move into a cramped single-bedroom basement rental unit on the city's low-income outskirts, selling all the designer bags, jewelry, and vehicles I'd purchased for Clara to scrape together minimal rent money. Their planned threat to leak internal firm budget chats never materialized. My legal counsel sent a formal cease and desist letter outlining defamation lawsuit consequences if any private corporate records were published online, and they abandoned the idea entirely rather than face additional civil litigation costs. Every social circle they'd once occupied cut off all contact. Former boutique regulars, Linda's Bridge Club friends, mutual acquaintances all unfollowed their social media accounts and declined event invitations to avoid associating with the public asset extortion scandal. They reached out to my personal cell dozens of times, each day sending desperate begging texts, requesting partial cash settlements or temporary housing access to the penthouse, which my attorney instructed me to block entirely to avoid informal verbal negotiations that could complicate divorce court proceedings. I never responded to a single outreach attempt, adhering strictly to legal guidance and refusing to reopen the 4-year cycle of one-sided financial exploitation they'd trapped me in. Chapter 5: My Healing and Contrasting Greed-Free Support Network. While Clara, Jackson, and Linda sank deeper into mounting debt and social isolation, my wealth management firm stabilized and grew stronger once the constant stream of unplanned personal payouts stopped draining corporate discretionary funds. I expanded our regional client service branch, hired 3 senior investment analysts, and launched a low-fee financial education program for young professionals navigating early marriage asset planning to avoid similar exploitation scenarios. My tight, unselfish support circle stood as a stark, warm contrast against Clara's blood family and her disloyal assistant's endless money demands. Seth, my college best friend and 50-50 business co-partner, never once asked me for personal loans or corporate expense favors over a decade of working together. When I spent weeks overwhelmed with divorce legal paperwork, he voluntarily covered all daily firm operations without extra compensation, checking in only to ask about my mental well-being rather than financial handouts. Attorney Emmis, Hale, provided clear, calm legal guidance through every step of the divorce process, prioritizing my emotional peace over rushed court filings, and drafted free simplified premarital contract templates I distributed through my firm's education workshops to help other young professionals protect their assets early. Long-term loyal firm clients. Multiple high-net-worth investors reached out after the divorce court records became public to express support, increasing their account allocations with my advisory practice out of respect for my transparent, ethical handling of the exploitation situation. None demanded preferential treatment or informal monetary gifts in exchange for their business. I attended bi-weekly licensed trauma counseling sessions to unpack for years of suppressed emotional weight from constant guilt tripping and long-term one-sided financial sacrifice for people who'd secretly planned to rob me of my property. I slowly let go of the quiet disappointment I'd carried for years over failing to build an equal, honest marriage partnership, accepting that some people will only view your wealth as a target for extraction no matter how generously you give. 6 months after the uncontested divorce finalized, the court issued a formal ruling fully validating the premarital asset agreement, dismissing every minor counterclaim Clara's legal representation attempted to file against my real estate and stock holdings. I never pursued any additional civil damages against them, only enforced my existing legal right to cut off all financial aid and retain sole ownership of my premarital assets. All hardship they faced was self-created by their own 2-year secret affair, conceived child, and premeditated asset extortion plot using pregnancy as leverage. I redistributed a portion of the firm's increased annual profits into domestic abuse and financial exploitation nonprofits, funding free legal consultation grants for individuals trapped in manipulative romantic or family relationships who lack the resources to hire private attorneys to protect their property. I no longer carry lingering resentment toward Clara and Jackson. Their own short-sighted greed destroyed every comfortable lifestyle I'd single-handedly funded for 4 years, with zero targeted retaliation from my side required to hold them accountable. This entire experience etched an unshakable lifelong lesson into my worldview. Boundaryless financial generosity toward a partner and their blood relatives will always be exploited if they harbor hidden selfish motives. You do not need to orchestrate revenge to make manipulative people face consequences. Their own reckless, greedy choices will collapse their entire world naturally once their scheme falls apart. Today, I run my firm with mandatory asset planning consultations for every new client entering a serious long-term relationship, openly sharing my past experience as a cautionary real-life example of what happens when you skip legal documentation and sacrifice your own wealth for ungrateful people who plot against you behind closed doors. My daily life is free of endless guilt-tripping and unplanned cash demands, surrounded by genuine colleagues and friends who value my character and professional skill rather than calculating how much of my money they can take for their own self-serving benefit.